Hi, everybody. Just on the last session, I said I would just do test 10 in the first workbook, just to show you how it works and what it does. So there are two parts of the question. The first is just to extend the figures. So again, look back on previous examples, and all that means is just putting the numbers into the correct column, be it debits or credits or whatever the case may be. So I'll just pop them in now that you can see how to do those. Your depreciation is there, 68,000, then 13,600. All of these are debits. Paste. Your 50,000 is a credit, it's capital. Your bank loan, there you go. Trade receivables. Your bad debt provision. Your trade creditors and your bank balance. So again, how do I know which side the bank balance goes on? Because that's one that can be either. I simply look at the totals, and this total is higher than that total. So I know that the 2490 has to go in there. If I put it on the other side, then my trial balance wouldn't balance. So that's how we can work that one out. So that's it. And because we put the totals in for you, now you see that your trial balance balances. So chances are either got them all right or all wrong. So just start with one that you know where to start with, and then copy it all the way down. So that's phase one. That's all that's involved. Just extend the existing numbers out into the columns as to whether it's a debit or credit. So now part two, and this is probably the complicated part, and this is your adjustments. So we need to have a look at our adjustments. So why do we do adjustments at all to accounts? Well, the reason we have to do adjustments is that we said that a balance sheet is a moment in time. So we just take a photograph of our assets and liabilities at a moment in time. And that moment in time is at midnight on the last day of the financial period. So if it's December 31st, then it is how the position looked at the 31st of December. So what we know from the trial balance is that we had 7,000 in our depreciation for furniture, because it told us that up here, that we have cumulative depreciation of 7,000 in furniture. So that's what we had in the accounts last year, and that showed the picture perfectly. But when we're looking at producing this year's accounts, then I have to include my cumulative depreciation, but I also have to see how much did my fixed assets depreciate this year. And in that's where I get the notes. And it says charge depreciation this year at 20% of cost for all fixed assets. So that's the first thing that I have to do. I have to depreciate my assets, and my furniture costs me 35,000. And 20% of that is a fifth, which is 7,000. So there's another 7,000 here this year, which is my depreciation on furniture. So that is now going to give me a brought forward figure for this year of 14,000. So I had 7 grand in last year. I now have to put in another 7,000 this year. So that means that my cumulative depreciation is 14,000. Okay. Similarly, on the motors, it was 13,600. Sorry, I'll put that in as a minus because it's depreciation. So there's your 13,600. We have to depreciate 20% on cost, and 20% on cost is another 13,500. So that is 13,600, sorry. And that now gives me 27,200. Sorry, it's a minus. So I have to say there's the value of my motors less the depreciation. So that's how much they're worth this year. My bad debt provision, it says increase the bad debt provision to 2% of debtors. Well, I know because it told me that my bad debt provision is 1890. And if I have to increase it to 2% of my debtors, well, then let me get 2% of my debtors. So there's my debtors figure there. So I know that the answer I want is my trade receivables multiplied by 0.02. So what I need there is 3510. Sorry, it's depreciation, or it's bad debt provision, so it's a minus. So it was 1890. It's now 3510. So I have to increase it by 1620. So that is that. Now, in terms of my light and heat, I have to accrue light and heat payable of 500 grand, so, or 500 quid. So what that means is that I have 8,500. That's bills and stuff that I already have entered onto the accounts of the business. I know there's 500 quid there that I owe, but I haven't got a bill for yet. So when I'm producing the set of accounts for the current year, I'm going to have to increase my light and heat expense to 9,000 quid, which is the 8.5 I've recorded, and the 500 quid that I know is coming. Also, from an advertising perspective, I know from my trial balance that I have 13,000 in advertising. I also know there's a bill coming for 400 quid that hasn't been sent in yet, but it does relate to the period and it should be included as an expense. So that is 13,400. In terms of my rent and rates, I have prepaid them by 2,100. So when I look at my rent and rates up here as well, it's down at 7,900. So my rent and rates is 7,900. And I've prepaid them by 2,100. So all I can record in the accounts is 5,800. So what we're saying is that of the 7,900 that we accounted for, only 5,800 relates to the period in question, and the other 2,100 is a prepayment into the other year. So that's the adjustments done. Now, what we're going to do here now is just to balance it up. And so my charge for bad debt provision is 1620. My depreciation this year is the total of these two, which is 20,600. My accruals account is, where's my accruals? Sorry. So that's my light, so that's my 900 quid there. And my prepayments accounts is for my rent and rates. So that is 2,100. 2,100. So let me just see that. And sorry, depreciation charge for this period, I've left that out, which is 20,600. And now it doesn't balance. And I'm just doing this live just to make sure that we know that everybody can make mistakes. What have I done wrong there? 7,000, 13,600, 1620, 500, 400, 2,100. Oh, I left out the 1620. Sorry, so the 1620 there from my bad debt provisions. So now my adjustments. So I'm just balancing up my adjustments for the purpose of the exam. really all you have to do is the top half, which is the adjustments. This bottom part here is more accounting in terms of balancing the accounts. So what I need to make sure is that when I am looking at my expenses, I have to put in an expense of 7,000 for depreciation on furniture, 13,000 or 20,600 for depreciation charge into my expenses. I need to put in 1620 for my provisions, and I also need to reduce my expenses. So that means that when I produce my set of accounts, it gives an accurate profit and loss for this year. And it also gives me an accurate balance sheet in terms of the valuation of the assets that I have. So that's question 10 in the workbook. It is important that we understand the adjustments and the reasons behind the adjustments. And to be perfectly honest with you, once you get the adjusted balance right, you will get most of the marks in the accounts, that we record the correct expenses and we record the correct valuation of the assets in the balance sheet. So that's it. I hope that's helpful. And look, if you have any questions, come back and we're always happy to help. Take care. Bye-bye.